Hey everyone, welcome to our first video about penalty shootouts. They are one of the most unique and stressful parts of a football game, and there seems to be a lot of emphasis put on luck or just the sheer skill of being able to put the ball in the back of the net. Whereas in recent years, research has shown the impact that psychological strategies can have on the outcome of a penalty shootout. Throughout this series, we will be breaking down the research and summarising ways in which you can implement these tactics into your own game and increase your chance of winning a penalty shootout. So today, in our first chapter, we're going to be focusing on anxiety and anticipation. A quote here from Jordet et al., who is well known in this field of research, suggests that anxiety is the most significant contributing factor to performance failure in a penalty shootout. So in order for us to better understand ways in which you can improve your penalty shootout success as a team with regards to anxiety and anticipation, the best place to start is to understand why and how failure occurs. Our first point is it's a lottery. As we've mentioned previously, there is a lot of emphasis put on the shootout just being down to luck, down to a flip of a coin, that 50-50 chance of scoring or missing. And this way of thinking really intensifies the feeling of being out of control of the process and the outcome of your penalty, and that therefore increases anxiety. Then we have choking effects. Now, there are many skills across many other sports that are susceptible to choking, for example, golf putting. However, in a penalty shootout, there is the added component of the opposing goalkeeper. So this increases uncertainty again for the players, as the goalkeeper has a direct influence on the penalty taker's performance, so again causing a bit more anticipation and anxiety for the player. And then our last point here is individual scrutiny. So the penalty is one of the very few occasions in football where an individual player is separated from the team and is under direct scrutiny. And this scrutiny is from their own teammates, their manager, the coaching staff, the opposition, the fans, and everyone watching. It's also one of the rare moments where the player has sufficient time to actually think about the consequences of failure or success. Now here we have a research example of showing us kind of what we've been talking about with regards to anxiety and that what if questions about the success or failure of the penalty kick. So the research shows that if a miss results in the team losing the game, there is less than 60% chance of the player actually scoring the penalty. Whereas on the other hand, if a goal results in the team winning the game, there is a 92% chance of the player scoring the penalty. I'm going to show you a real life example of kind of how this mentality works through showing you a couple of penalties taken by England players. Okay, so we have Saka here taking the last penalty for England. Let's break this down. So if Saka scores, England will stay in the competition. There will be another round of penalties. However, if Saka misses, Italy win the Euros final and England lose. So Saka is aiming to score to prevent England from losing. Now let's compare it with this scenario. Dyer is taking England's last penalty in the 2018 World Cup game against Colombia. If Dyer misses, England stay in the competition and there'll be another round of penalties. But if Dyer scores, England win the game and go through to the next round of the competition. So Dyer is aiming to score to win the game for England. So when we compare those two scenarios, there's two different things going through each of those athletes' minds. And a lot of the time it is subconscious. You don't realise what you're thinking about, what you're going into. And the difference in your thought process is going into a situation where if you score, you win, or if you miss, you get knocked out. So how do we change this statistic? How do we change the drastic difference between that 60% and that 92%? So one of the main influences here is the belief about the role of skill versus luck, which we're going to call contingency, and also the belief about the player's own penalty taking abilities. We're going to call that competence. So a player who has low perceived competence and contingency, so the belief that the outcome is dependent on luck and the goalkeeper's actions, and they also have a low belief in their own ability, are more likely to experience cognitive anxiety symptoms. Whereas when we compare that to a player who has a high perception of competence and contingency, so they believe that the outcome is based upon skill and has a high belief in their own ability, then they experience less cognitive anxiety. Now, this isn't to say that Dyer and Saka, one of them has a high level and one of them has a low level, but this is just an example. So now research suggests that focusing on 3 mechanisms can help overcome this anticipation and anxiety in the penalty shootout. And these 3 mechanisms relate to the disruptions in visual attentional control. And these strategies are keeper independent, which suggests that you should ignore the keeper and just pick a spot and go for it. Number 2 is keeper dependent. So this is where you watch the keeper and make a decision based on his movements, his body language and his eye line and everything like that. Then number 3 is called opposite independent. So this is where you look one way and shoot the other side. Now, out of these 3 strategies, the most successful and accurate strategy is number 1, keeper independent, where you ignore the keeper and you pick a spot and you just go for it. But why is this? So although mechanisms 2 and 3 are effective, they are impacted more when anxiety is heightened. So anxiety increases the amount of attention paid to the goalkeeper, and this can often be subconsciously, like we've discussed before. Your players don't even realise that you're doing it, that you're actually paying more attention to the goalkeeper. And by focusing more on the goalkeeper, players have a higher tendency to produce a shot that is significantly closer to the goalkeeper, which is usually in the middle of the goal. This therefore makes the attempt more savable. So that's chapter 1 finished, and I hope that's kind of given you a bit of an insight into just what we're going to cover with regards to penalty shootouts and the massive impact psychology has. So obviously we've covered a bit about anxiety and anticipation today, and in my next chapter I want to look at breaking down the different stages of the penalty shootout and how important each stage actually is, from when that final whistle goes to when you're standing at the penalty spot. So make sure to catch my next video on the penalty shootout part 2. If you have any questions about what we do here at Advance or anything that I've covered today in general, then please do not hesitate to get in touch.